Hi, I'm Johnny from UltimatePaperMache.com, and this is the third video in my series about this cardboard pattern that I just made. It's a pattern that you can put together to create a very, very simplified skull shape and then use it on the inside of a sculpture that you make of a human face. Now, this is not what he looks like when you finish your cardboard pattern, obviously, because I've covered this one with plaster cloth. The only reason that I decided to do that is because I mentioned in my second video when I was making this guy that because I had fairly stiff wet clay, I felt that it would have been a lot easier if the form itself was a little bit stiffer, and then I wouldn't have kind of been working against it. You obviously don't need to do that if you're using a softer clay, or if you're using one of the oil-based or wax-based modeling clays that where you heat them up in order to get them soft enough to start with, because then you can make it as soft as you want to, put on a really thin layer, give it a couple of minutes, it'll harden up again, and then you'll have your hard form. So you would not, actually, you can just go ahead and skip the rest of this video. You won't need it. But because I did mention it in that last video that you could use the plaster cloth if you think that it would be easier, I decided to go ahead and make this video. Now, obviously, if you're going to make any kind of changes to the pattern so that you can have a different form, like Frankenstein's monster, for instance, if you want him to have a really, really tall top of his head and you add some cardboard on there, whatnot, obviously you're going to want to do that before you add the plaster cloth because it would be really hard to do it later. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to show you how this was done. It's going to be really fast. It is really easy. In the video where I showed you how I made that face, I used some plastic covered duct tape in order to protect the cardboard form from the water in the wet clay that I was using. This time I'm using masking tape. Obviously kind of a more expensive masking tape than really necessary, but this is what I've got on hand. I used it for my big painting project last year, and I have tons of it left over. Got a little carried away and bought too much. So this is what I'm using. Regular masking tape would work well too. Now this masking tape is still going to protect the cardboard from getting too wet, but it's also going to be a lot easier for the plaster cloth to stick to this. So I'm going to just go ahead and cover the whole thing, and then I'll go get my plaster cloth out and we'll start covering this up. So now it's green, which is kind of cool. I like that. And I also did wrap the tape around the edges so that it's on part of the inside too. I'll try to keep the plaster cloth from going too far in there. I don't want the inside of the cardboard to get wet either. Now I'm going to take this outside. This is my plaster cloth. I'm going to cut it up into little squares. Well, actually big squares. And I want to do it outside because if you do it in the house, you end up with plaster everywhere. The dust just flies. So I'm not going to do that. I'm taking it outside. So now I've got my plaster cloth. I just take the roll and use a knife and just cut right down here. And that's why these rectangles are all a different size. It won't matter. I'm going to start out with the smallest ones around the face and then use the bigger ones for the larger places in the back. Now I am using warm water, and I'm going to use 2 pieces at the same time. Dip both of them in at the same time. I got this idea from the Brick in the Yard people. If you haven't seen their YouTube channel, be sure to look it up, because they've got some really good videos on how to make molds, how to use plaster cloth for all sorts of things, how to make resin castings. It's really fun. I'm pushing all the air bubbles out. Now, if you notice, I'm letting the water drain off as much as possible without spending too much time. I don't want it to start getting hard when I'm holding it up above the water bowl. That wouldn't be a good idea. But I don't want to put any extra water on this, because even though it's got the masking tape on there, still, there's cardboard under there. And we don't want it to get wet. Whoops, went too far. I'm folding this one back because it wanted to go farther than I had put the masking tape. So I just brought it back, folded it. Now it works just fine. So now it's all done, and I'm going to leave it probably overnight just to let it cure completely. It's already hard. It took maybe 5 minutes for it to get to the point where it's really quite stiff already, but it isn't dry. Plaster cloth cures a long time before it gets dry. I'm going to let it go ahead and dry out. Then I'm going to seal it before I start using my wet clay, because plaster cloth or any kind of plaster, really absorbs a lot of water, and I don't want it drawing the water out of my clay, because that's going to make it really hard to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and let this cure overnight. Then I'm going to seal it with either oh gosh, I'm going to have to go out to the garage and find some kind of either varnish or shellac. And then I might even put some wax over that. I don't know. It'll depend on how it feels when I get that done. I want to make sure, though, that it is really sealed up well so that it doesn't draw the moisture out of my clay. But other than that, he's all ready to go. I've got myself a form. If you can think of a better term for this guy than skull-shaped form for the inside of a realistic human face sculpture. It's just kind of long to say. Be sure and let me know what I should call him. Now, if you'd like to use this pattern, you can find it on ultimatepapermache.com/patterns. You'll have to scroll down a bit. You'll see all these guys back here on that page too. And if you would like to go straight to this page, go ahead and click on this link. I'll put a live link down below this video so you can go directly to it if you want to. There is a small charge for it, as there is for all of these guys too. I put a lot of time into these, so kind of have to charge for them, but it's not much, so I think it's really worth it. Now, if you decide that you do want to use the pattern and you make something with it, I really want to see how it comes out. So please come back to the ultimatepapermache.com and click on the Daily Sculptors page link at the very top. It's in the menu bar. It's easy to find. You can download a couple of photographs of your new face or anything else you've made lately, and we would love to see how they come out. So come back and visit me. ultimatepapermache.com. I'll see you there.